welcome back to BuiltFixed. This is a how-to, or how I'm attempting to build a jig for my sliding table saw to make these nice scalloped handholds. For me, this is going to be used on a beehive project, which I have going on over here, all covered up. And I want to have some handholds on the sides of these hives so that when they weigh 60 pounds or more of honey, I can easily get my hand inside and hold it without dropping the hive. There are lots of ways to do it, but I've come up with my own little homemade jig contraption here, and it's still a working prototype. I can now see that it works, but I'll show you how it works, this prototype, and some of the changes that I plan to make to it. Plus, I'll show it in use so you can see just how well it actually works. So here's the basic jig. I'm utilizing the fact that Felder has these 4 threaded holes in the cast iron tabletop here to allow me to mount these 2 runners here down to the tabletop. And you're going to need to do that 12 millimeter diameter bolt. These 2 are 120, and then the scrap piece of wood that I had over here wasn't as wide, so these bolts are only 100 millimeters. But I'd say for sure on this end here you want this piece to be as beefy and big as possible, because it's acting as a guide for the template here as it slides in and out. This sort of makeshift sled, it needs something to push up against. So I would say try and not go any smaller than 100 millimeters in height on this end here. And what I've done here is I've taken a piece of hardwood and attached it to the bottom just with a simple screw through the top. And this has been beveled here to approximately 15 degrees, this bevel. And I've calculated that this height here, along with the length here, will give me an angle here of 15 degrees as well. So it all sits down tight to the piece of MDF. If you try to attach a piece that's square, it's not going to work. During some of the first initial tries to cut these scalloped handholds, I was getting tons of dust up in the air, and also when I removed the sled after each cut, I could see I had a lot of debris underneath. So I've now added an extra hose for suction inside the device, in addition to the saw's own internal suction, because it's not enough to have just the saw's suction to take care of all the dust that will be created. Now I think a better spot probably would have been to have had the dust port actually sit right down in here and come in from the side. And if you make your sides high enough, you can probably put your dust port right here, and as the saw kicks back the debris in this direction, it'll naturally be headed towards the suction. But my attempt here was just to quickly get something that would work. Alright, so the basic components you have are, again, this sled that's going to slide back and forth. You want to have a back or front stop here that your workpiece will slide down into, and then I've added on the edge here an extra piece of wood as a spacer, because I want to have my scalloped handholds close to being centered on my hive boxes. Now on the back here, I just dropped in a piece of scrap wood that acts as a physical stop for the sled to go up against. But again, if you were more clever with a finished jig and not a prototype, some sort of slide stops that could be indexed along here could be nice. As well, on the back of your jig, a maybe movable backstop to allow for different depth scallop handholds to be cut. But as this jig is set up right now, it will cut my scalloped handholds plenty deep enough for what I need for this hive box. And I'm going to go ahead and use this demo one now and cut these 2 boxes out with scallops but probably in the future I will modify this to be a more permanent jig that I can put away and take out and set up quickly and adapt to any project. So the basic motion that will be happening is the sled here should be all the way forward up against the stop material here. And what you want it to do is have your saw blade just at the surface or slightly below where you want the scalp to begin here. Like this. If the blade is already projecting up past the sled surface here, what will happen is instead of creating a smooth contour leading in, you will end up with this sort of very squared off and with a drop down. And if you want to have that kind of seamless, slide in effect, then you need to have your blade no higher than the surface. It shouldn't be touching. And right now I am just barely touching a little bit, and you can see on this one here, perhaps you can see it on camera, I have a slight lip here on the edge. Now if you were to be sanding down your workpiece, that last 32nd of an inch might disappear, but the right thing to do is to drop the blade down ever so slightly. Alright, well, two more things I want to point out. I'm obviously here at the front of the machine here, and the two things are, first off, the sliding table for this operation has to be locked. Mine's in the locked position, so I can't move. The second thing is that you probably can't make your cut for the scalloped handholds all in one pass. You're going to have the blade set a little bit lower, and for the final pass through, raise that blade back up to your final cut height. So the first thing you have to do is to establish, as mentioned previously, that the blade is flush with the top of the workpiece or just slightly down below that. So once that's known, come over and make some sort of homemade pointer device and point to some part on the saw body here where you know is fixed, and then rotate now your hand wheel perhaps half, 3/4 of a turn or more down to make a shallow cut first. After that shallow cut's made, then now raise your saw blade back up again to the point where your pointer was indicating to, and finish the handholds. That way all your scalloped cuts will turn out to be identical. Alright, one last thing to be noted here is that this bolt hole is enlarged a little bit on mine, and that's to allow adjustment. You need to have this member here needs to be square 90 degrees to your saw blade here. So simply have your saw blade up and have it stand vertical at 90, then come over with your square and check that you're actually 90 to the blade. That's important. If you don't do that, you're going to end up with scalloped handles that will come angled onto the side, and you probably want them to be symmetrical. So in that case, you need to have this member here 90, and of course the one on the other end, if you use it like I have in this setup here, should also be parallel. Alright, so my jig, my slides all the way forward now. A sample piece of scrap. You can see when I rub it around like this, I make zero contact with the blade, but as I pull this forward, of course I begin to make contact, and that's how that scalloped cut is made. So my blade's in the top position now. It's been marked down below to indicate that's the top of the cut. I'm going to reduce my blade right now, make a scalloped cut, and then raise it up and finish the cut. So here we go. Well, as it turns out, I was a bit too preoccupied with the video production, and I did not lower the saw blade quite enough. You can actually hear that the saw just won't cut anymore. The blade's too high. There's not enough tooth on the blade to actually cut. So I've now lowered the blade down by about 1 revolution, I can now easily complete the cut all the way to the back. Then I'll reset, push forward now, and then go ahead and re-raise that blade back up to my predetermined flush cutting height. That is a finished cut height. And now I can easily complete that cut all the way back to the stop. Well, that's one perfect cut scalloped handhold down, and 3 to go. I hope this jig prototype of mine here helps you with your scalloped handhold cuts. Good luck, stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.